She was just a teenager, perched on the edge of adulthood, sitting quietly in a first-class seat that felt impossibly plush beneath her. Zara Collins clutched her boarding pass like a secret whispered promise. Flying alone for the first time. A reward, hard-earned, gifted by her father. Dressed in a simple hoodie and jeans, her curly hair pulled back, she radiated a quiet confidence, but her heart hammered against her ribs, a drumbeat of excitement and a flicker of apprehension. This seat, 2A, window view, was a world away from the cramped economy rides of her childhood. She breathed it in, the soft lighting, the hushed efficiency, the faint scent of possibility. Camera pans slightly, focus shifts to Miss Elise approaching down the aisle. Crisp uniform, sharp features, an air of practiced authority. Then, the moment fractured. A flight attendant, Miss Elise, glided down the aisle, her steps precise, her gaze sweeping the cabin. Tall, sharp, her smile professionally cool but lacking warmth. Her eyes landed on Zara, lingered, and stopped. The smile faltered, replaced by a subtle frown. She stepped closer, her voice, though not initially loud, cutting through the cabin hum with startling firmness. "Excuse me, miss. Are you sure you're in the right seat?" The question, loud enough for nearby passengers to overhear, snapped heads around. Zara looked up, surprised. She held out her boarding pass, offering a polite smile. "Yes, I'm in seat 2A. Miss Elise took the pass, her eyes narrowing as she scanned it. A beat of silence. She looked from the ticket back to Zara, skepticism hardening her expression. "This is a first-class ticket," she said slowly, deliberately, as if explaining something complex to a child. "Are you traveling with someone?" "No, I'm traveling alone," Zara replied, her voice steady but quiet, confusion starting to cloud her excitement. Miss Elise's lips tightened. She handed the ticket back but didn't move. Hands on hips, she leaned in slightly. "I think there's been a mistake. You can't sit here. This section is reserved for first-class passengers only." Zara's heart skipped a beat. She blinked, the words hitting her like cold air. "But this is my seat. I have a first-class ticket." The attendant's tone sharpened, growing louder, laced with impatience. "Listen, sweetheart, I don't know how you ended up with this ticket, but you need to move to the back. You're holding up the boarding process." "Sweetheart." The condescension stung. The volume mortified. Passengers were openly watching now, whispering amongst themselves. Some looked away, feigning disinterest, but the weight of their collective gaze felt heavy, suffocating. Zara felt her face flush hot, pride crumbling under the sudden, brutal force of public humiliation. She wasn't a problem. She hadn't done anything wrong. But arguing felt impossible, pointless. Refusing to let tears fall, refusing to give Miss Elise the satisfaction, Zara quietly gathered her small backpack. The walk from first class to the back of the plane felt like miles under a harsh spotlight. Every footstep echoed with the silent, perceived judgment of strangers. Miss Elise stood watching, arms crossed, a flicker of smug satisfaction on her face. She hadn't corrected a mistake. She had enforced her own biased view of who belonged. Zara found an empty seat near the rear lavatories, sinking into the narrow, less forgiving cushions. She stared out the small, scratched window, the bright sky outside mocking the storm brewing inside her. The lump in her throat burned. "I will not cry." After a few moments, her hands trembling slightly, she pulled out her phone. A message to her father. "Dad, they made me leave my seat. Had the ticket but she was really rude. Said I didn't belong. I'm in the back now." She hit send, slipped the phone away. Her face remained calm, a mask of composure, but beneath it, anger, disbelief, and a stubborn resolve began to simmer. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Transition. Mid-flight. Sound of steady engine hum. Zara stares out the window. The hum of the engines was a monotonous drone, failing to drown out the relentless replay of the confrontation in Zara's mind. The cold stare, the loud dismissal, the whispers. She'd followed the rules, possessed the proof, yet she was treated like an intruder. Frustration churned, but she consciously summoned the calm her father always preached: patience and control over fleeting anger. Her phone vibrated, jolting her. Her father's reply flashed on the screen. "What do you mean they made you move?" Zara typed back carefully, simply, "Said I couldn't sit in first class. Made me move to economy." Seconds later, "What's the flight number?" Even through text, Zara felt the controlled fury beneath his words. He rarely showed anger, preferring quiet, decisive action. She double-checked her pass stub, sent the flight number, adding quickly, "Stay where you are. Don't worry." She put the phone down, forcing a slow exhale. She trusted him completely, but what could he do now, thousands of feet in the air? Cut to first-class galley. Miss Elise pours coffee, looking pleased. Meanwhile, Miss Elise strode confidently into the galley, pleased with her decisive handling of the situation. She poured herself coffee, ignoring the uneasy glances from her colleagues. A younger attendant, Iris, spoke up cautiously. Was there really an issue with that girl's ticket? Miss Elise rolled her eyes. You saw her. Didn't look like a first-class passenger. System error, probably. Or got the ticket from someone else. Either way, she didn't belong up here. Iris frowned but held her tongue. Arguing with Miss Elise was futile. But something felt wrong. Cut to cockpit. Captain Reynolds at controls. In-flight phone screen shows a stern-faced manager. Miss Elise moved through the first-class cabin, straightening trays, offering drinks, her composure immaculate. Routine. Then, the intercom crackled, "Miss Elise, please report to the cockpit immediately." Her hand froze mid-pour. She set the bottle down, masked her unease with a practiced smile, and walked toward the front. Inside the cockpit, the captain turned, his expression serious. On the screen, a flight manager from the executive office, his face unreadable, his tone firm. "Miss Elise, we received a call. A first-class passenger was removed from her seat." "Explain." Confidence wavering, she replied, "Yes, Captain. A young girl. Ticket didn't seem right. Asked her to move to economy." The manager's expression darkened. "Did you verify the ticket's validity before making her move, Miss Elise?" "Well, yes, but..." "Yes or no?" Her face pale, Miss Elise nodded numbly. As she walked down the aisle, escorted by security, she risked one last glance at Zara. The girl was simply watching, calm, composed. No triumph, just quiet observation. That unnerved Miss Elise more than anything. Stepping off the plane, the familiar terminal felt alien, hostile. Her career, her authority, her carefully constructed world, all dissolving before her eyes. Transition, executive conference room. Sterile, imposing. Miss Elise faces Calvin York. Miss Elise sat rigidly in a sterile conference room, facing Calvin York, Senior Operations Manager. His face was grim. "Do you understand why you're here, Miss Elise?" "There was a complaint." "A complaint?" York echoed sharply. "This is far beyond a complaint. This is about why you singled out a passenger based on appearance. Why you humiliated her publicly. Why you failed basic protocol." He slid a folder across the table, reports, passenger statements, a formal complaint from Ethan Miller. "As of now, you are suspended without pay, pending a full board review." Suspended. The word hung in the air. "I've given 10 years. Miss Elise," York cut her off. "If this were any other passenger, it would be immediate termination. Consider this your one chance to take full accountability. If you make excuses, defend your actions. This is the end of your career." He closed the folder. That's all. Transition. Days later. Miss Elise sits alone in her apartment, reading an email. Days later, alone in her apartment, Miss Elise received an email from Ethan Miller. An offer. A chance to apologize directly to Zara, not for her job, but for herself. A chance to acknowledge her mistake. With trembling hands, she typed a reply, pouring out her shame, her regret, admitting her bias, her failure. She didn't expect forgiveness, only accountability. She hit send, a tiny spark of something unfamiliar, humility, flickering within her. Transition. Zara in her father's office reads Miss Elise's apology email. Zara read Miss Elise's emailed apology. It felt different from the forced words on the plane. Honest. She showed it to her father. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Zara considered it. She didn't need the apology, but acknowledging growth felt important. She typed a reply, accepting the apology not for Miss Elise's sake, but because people can learn, and because the focus needed to be on systemic change, the new training, the new policies her father was already implementing. Final montage, news clips about airline policy changes, bias training seminars, Zara speaking confidently at a youth forum. The incident on Flight 372 became a catalyst. Ethan Miller drove sweeping reforms, ensuring bias training, oversight, and accountability became standard practice. Miss Elise, facing her suspension, began the difficult work of confronting her own prejudices, perhaps finding a path toward genuine change. Zara, though thrust into the spotlight, used the experience not for revenge, but to advocate for fairness and respect. She emerged not as a victim, but as a quiet force who reminded an entire industry, and everyone watching, that dignity isn't a privilege, it's a right. And sometimes, the quietest voice holds the most power to make it heard.